Well, good morning. It's good to see a nice crowd today. Had a busy week. Monday we did close on our house that we're buying right next door to us, and did a lot of work getting it fixed up. And then Friday I left up to Keystone for the Young Life Leadership Retreat, and that went very good. I did come back last night so I could get ready for today. I know some of you were kind of confused as far as when I was going to be gone. Tuesday I'll be leaving for Hawaii. So I'm ready for my vacation. My brother calls me up this past week and he says that he's looking forward to having us come. And he says, I don't want you to be working this time, but I do have some windows that I need to put in. I need to get more pipes. So apparently I called Friday when my mom just turned 91, and she said that my dad was down at my brother's house putting a window in. So hopefully that project will be finished. He also, I mean, in the homes in Hawaii are single wall construction. I don't know if you ever seen a single wall construction building, but you know, they don't have to worry about getting very cold over there. So he was talking about, you know, insulating, putting a double wall in so that you can keep the coolness in and the heat out. And so I'm thinking about my vacation. And if I'm ever going to have one. But I guess like anything else, you have to learn how to say that simple two-letter word. What is that? No. How many of you have a hard time saying that two-letter word? No. And see, sometimes we get ourselves into trouble when we can't say no, right? And sometimes we're overworked, underpaid, and we get burnt out really easy. And I'm thinking about, you know, what we're going to be talking about today. Anyways, this is the room that we had to stay in. You know, so I really suffered this weekend as I endured the hardship of staying in this beautiful hotel. And from what I found out, we had to pay $10 to go to this retreat, and it included all the food. Nothing fancy. It was the Young Life committee that kind of fed us. So we were in this room, no table to sit on, just chairs like in a conference room. And but the thing is that the rooms were really nice. And apparently we got to meet the owner. Corey brought the owner into the room and introduced us. And apparently this is some billionaire who had bought this. I guess he was a pig farmer up there and invented some kind of shot for the pigs, and so he makes like $5 for every single pig in the state of South Dakota. But he, for a hobby, I guess, bought this hotel and told Corey that anytime Young Life wants to use this hotel, they can for no cost at all. And he also built this huge mansion on top of this hill so that people, maybe missionaries or whatever, could come and enjoy staying in Keystone for no cost at all. So, you know, we think about these rich people sometimes, but you know, God has blessed some people to serve other people through different means, and we're pretty excited about being able to use this facility. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that. Stubbornness leads you nowhere. Again, we've been studying through the book of Exodus, reading chapter by chapter. We did skip the one that talked about the genealogies because I think that would be pretty boring. I'll let you guys read that one yourself. But we talked about excuses, how we all tend to make excuses, just like Moses did. When God wanted him to go and deliver the Israelites out of Egypt, and he kept on saying, well, I can't talk too good, and you know, he's kind of afraid what Pharaoh's going to say, you know, who are you? How God had enabled him through Moses' weakness to have his power displayed among the Israelites and the Egyptians. likewise. And then we talked about that word, Japanese word I taught you guys about. Remember what that word is? Anybody? Stephanie, you remember? Monku, monku, monku. Asakara pamae. Mainichi, mainichi. Basically what it means is complain, complain, complain. From early in the morning, every day, all you can do is complain. And we know that not only the Egyptians complained, but the Israelites complained about having to do all that hard work. The last week we talked about hardening of the heart, and how Pharaoh, after seeing God at work, just didn't want to change his attitude about things, but he would kind of relent for just a little bit, just so that the plague would go away. And so we have gone through 4 of the first plagues. Water turned into blood. We read about that. And we had the frogs. And then we had the gnats. And I talked about how the gnats, and how I hate it when I'm out in the yard and these gnats just, for some reason, gnats love ears. And they just want to bite on the ears for some reason. And it's just irritable, and how it must have been to have a plague of gnats. And then we talked about my favorite, that I hate. How many of you enjoy having flies flying around your food? And I can't, you do? and I can't imagine how it would be to have a plague of flies. I mean, you can imagine, like I said, how when you see the cattle and all the flies just all over the cow, and I can imagine that being just everywhere. But now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other plagues. In Exodus chapter 9, if you turn to that, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, but this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews says. He says, Let my people go so that they may worship me." And I just thought that I'd stop here because I forgot to mention some things. And then I'll restart. I forgot to mention that there's a Summit Christian College is having their praise banquet, and I'm going to be gone for the first time in ages. I won't be able to go. And I asked Gail that if she and Ron would, since they're going to be hosting that table, to be in charge of giving these tickets away. So I gave Ron the tickets this morning. There's 10 per table. Now I'm pretty sure if we get more than 10, we could call the college up and have more people to be able to go. But I think this is the 60th anniversary of Summit Christian College. And if you don't know what this is all about, it's just every year the college puts on this banquet to praise God for the continuing of the education. Nice work. Battery came out. Can you fix that for me real quick? And so they have this banquet, and they sometimes they have the choir. Is the choir singing this year? No? What kind of entertainment they have this year? Do you know? You don't know? Well, I thought you worked for the college. Anyways, it's always a great time of a celebration. So if you're interested in going, this year I haven't done anything to promote the thing, but it's always a great time. And it actually doesn't cost anything, but they do take up an offering at the table. And it seems to be one of the biggest fundraisers, so do come prepared. If you go, be prepared with a checkbook. Also, Ron gave me this about the tornado in Ozark, Joplin, Missouri. How many of you heard about that disaster just not too long ago? And I didn't get a chance to read through it, but Ron wanted me to mention, maybe you can say something about it. I know you talked about it in Sunday school, but maybe since you read it, you can kind of mention what's in this article, and if you would like to read it, that'll be on the table afterwards.
It was just mostly the pictures of how there wasn't even any bark on the trees. That's how devastating it was.
And it apparently went right through the middle of the town, and over 150 people died. I know some of the professors at the college had their homes destroyed, but I don't think anybody at the college.
There's one lady, I thought you might know her. She was the signer. Her name was Faith Dunn. She did die in that.
Okay.
And there are others that were students that died, and it shows their picture in there and tells something about them. And it does mention Bill and Glenda McCarty that were our ministers in Elbert that both worked for the college, and of course they lost their home.
Okay. And I did go there and visit one year for a youth leaders convention. I don't remember how many years it was. I think I was still in Hawaii at that time when I went to that youth leaders convention. So I can't even imagine. I've been through towns that have been devastated by tornadoes, and it's just my heart goes out for those people. And I know they're still recovering. I know there's a lot of big corporations that have sent money. People from other countries have sent money to the town to help on the recovery process. And then now we have the hurricane that's going through North Carolina. One of our Young Life leaders just got back from North Carolina. He's from there, and he came back, I think it was Tuesday. And he says, I'm glad I'm not there right now. And I also been through a Hurricane Eva back in 1980, and that was something that was pretty devastating. You got? Well, let's go back. I'm going to start over again. Then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh and say to him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go and continue to hold them back, the hand of the Lord will bring a terrible plague on your livestock in the field, on your horses, donkeys, camels, and on your cattle, sheep and goats. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and that of Egypt, so that no animal belonging to Israelites will die. Now, you can imagine, those of you especially who are ranchers and that have livestock, what would it be if you had a plague that happened to every single one of your animals? I mean, including the chickens, maybe. That every single one died because of this plague that happens. So you can kind of get an idea of what this might be like. The Lord set a time and said, tomorrow the Lord will do this in this land. The next day the Lord did it. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one animal belonging to the Israelites died. Now, if you can imagine what's going on, okay, here are the Egyptian people, and here's the Israelite people, and all the animals of the Egyptian people died. And all the animals of the Israelites lived. Now, I don't know what you think about this, but does it matter if you're an Egyptian or if you're an Israelite? Wouldn't you understand that there's something miraculous going on, something supernatural going on, that if every single one of the Egyptians died, after it was said that this is what's going to happen, it was prophesied that this is what's going to happen, that all the Egyptian animals would die, but all the Israelite animals will live. You would say, okay, the Egyptians would say, maybe we better start listening to this God. And all the Israelites who tend to be wishy-washy, right, in their belief about God, we know this as we go and we see them wandering to the desert for 40 years, that they were pretty wishy-washy people. Well, I would like for us to think, where would we stand in our thought about what was happening at this time? And a lot of times I think we step back and we look and read the story and we say, those guys were pretty stupid. I mean, if I was there, I would believe. How many of you say that? Those guys are pretty crazy. I mean, if I had seen the Red Sea divided and we walked right through, and then here's these Egyptians coming chasing after us, and then the water just happened to close over them and drown all those chariots and those people. Oh, it just happened that way, right? And all these things that's happening, all the plagues it wasn't like it just happened, but it was said that this is going to happen. And so, we see Pharaoh say, I guess I'll let you go. And then after the plague goes away and he kind of changes his mind. But how many of us are like that? We pray to God and we say, God, take this away from me, and then he removes this thing, and then we just go back to our sin. Well, sometimes I think about what we're reading in this story of Moses and his dealings with Pharaoh. And I said, there's a lot of similarity between how we act and how we carry on our daily lives that has a lot to do with what happened when Moses confronted Pharaoh. Stubbornness. So Pharaoh investigated and found that not even one of the animals of the Israelites had died, yet his heart was unyielding, and he would not let the people go. Now, I don't know if our president, Barack Obama, was faced with this situation and all the animals in America died after it was been prophesied that, this is going to happen because you haven't listened to me. I don't think he'd be the president very much longer, right? But this is Pharaoh. I mean, he's king. He's just like, if you understand and read about the culture at that time, he was like a god. That's why when they had all these pyramids, they would actually take the Pharaoh and embalm him to preserve the body, because they thought that someday that he would come back to life as, how many watched the Mummy movies, that was their thought, that their king, their Pharaoh was a god. And that's why, when the Pharaoh died, guess what? Everybody that was in his household will be buried alive with him. All his riches, and that's why, these archaeologists would like to go in and find all that gold that was buried with the Pharaoh. His servants, everything that, even his animals, everything was buried in that pyramid with the Pharaoh. And then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from the furnace, and Moses tossed it in the air in the presence of Pharaoh. It will become fine dust over the whole land, and festering boils will break out on the people and animals throughout the land. So they took the soot from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. Moses tossed it into the air, and festering boils broke out on people and animals. The magicians couldn't stand before Moses because of the boils that were on them and all the Egyptians. Now we remember the story of Job, where he was, he had all these boils on his body, and it was so painful that he would take a piece of pottery, broken pottery, and scrape those boils to kind of relieve some of that pus. But you can imagine what it would be like if every single one of us in this room had this plague happen upon us, and we had these boils all over our body. You couldn't sit down or stand up or whatever because there's boils all over. Well, that's what happened to the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said to Moses. Then the Lord said to Moses, get up early in the morning, confront Pharaoh, and say to him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, let my people go, so that they may worship. For this time, I will send full force of my plagues against you and against your officials and your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with a plague that would have wiped you off the earth. And I think about this right here, is that God could have just, God, done with it. No more. And he could probably do that today too. I'm tired of you Christians, we have this disaster 911, and that's coming up, right? The celebration of 10 years. And what happened when that happened? America just, all of a sudden, they turned to God and started going to church and being so patriotic. And how long did that last? Not very long, did it? I don't think it was even a couple of months where they started turning back to their own ways. And today I'm reading the paper, and over again I'm hearing stuff that this country is just turning their backs against God. I know in this election coming up, our neighboring state, Colorado, is putting on the ballot to endorse or to have gay marriages. And again, like just a couple weeks ago, I saw in the newspaper where in Lincoln, this couple that I know, this girl that I know who is a lesbian wants to marry this other girl in Lincoln. And then go to Iowa to, I guess, make it legal. What is happening? What does it take? You know, so when we think about what's happening to Moses confronting Pharaoh, and then the way Pharaoh reacted and his stubbornness, you know, maybe we need to ask ourselves this question. Is Americans being as stubborn as Pharaoh? Hardening their hearts? And he says, but I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. You still set yourself against my people and will not let them go. Therefore, at this time tomorrow, I will send you the worst hailstorm that has ever fallen in Egypt from the day it was founded till now. Now, how many of you have been through a hailstorm? Huh? I know back in July, I don't know what year it was, but I had just, the day before, I had put the last shingle on my house in Scottsbluff. July 4th was this hailstorm that destroyed my roof again. Just yesterday, on my way home from Keystone, right south of Hermosa, looking at the sky, and got these raindrops on my window. Oh, right, it's going to rain. We need the rain. And then it started raining a little harder. And then I started hearing this on the top of my vehicle. And it got harder and louder and louder. And I was talking to Jeff on the phone, and he told me that he actually heard the hail. That's how loud it was. And I can't imagine having a hailstorm so bad that it would just devastate everything, all the crops. Well, this is what happened. But anyways, it says here, I will send the worst hailstorm that was ever fallen in Egypt from that day it was founded to now. And give an order now to bring your livestock and everything you have in your field to a place of shelter. Because of the hail will fall on every person, an animal that has not been brought in and is still out in the field. And what's going to happen? They will die. Those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried in bringing their slaves and their livestock inside. But those who ignored the word of the Lord left the slaves and the livestock in the field. And then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards the sky so that hail will fall all over Egypt, on people and animals and on everything growing in the field of Egypt. And when Moses struck out his staff toward the sky, the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed down to the ground, so that the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. Hail fell and lightning flashed back and forth, and it was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. Throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both people and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and stripped every tree. The only place it did not hail was in the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned. Do you think that Pharaoh knew that he had sinned? I mean, what was he doing when he said, this time I have sinned? Was he saying that this is the first time I have sinned? You know, sometimes in life, we get convicted with our sin. And we want those things to kind of go away. And this is what we see with Pharaoh, is that, every time he's confronted with this hardship, he sort of kind of turns to God and say, God, okay, I had enough. I give up. And then when things are back to normal again, start going back and doing the old sin again. And it's back and forth, back and forth. This time I have sinned, he said. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. So here he's talking to Moses, pray to the Lord, for we have enough thunder and hail. I will let you go. You don't have to stay any longer. Now, be thinking about what's going on here, okay? All these plagues, people have died. There's probably no crop anymore because all the crops are destroyed. All the animals have died. And still, they're in a situation where they have doubt on who God is. Moses replied, when I have gone out of the city, I will stretch out my hand in prayer to the Lord. The thunder will stop and there will be no more hail, so that you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But I know that you and your officials still do not fear the Lord God. The flax and barley were destroyed, since the barley had headed and the flax was in bloom. The wheat and spelt, however, were not destroyed because they had ripened later. And then Moses left Pharaoh and went out of the city. He spread his hands out toward the Lord. The thunder and hail stopped. And the rain no longer poured down on the land. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had stopped, he sinned again. He had his officials harden their hearts. So Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had said to Moses. And then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, so that I may perform these signs of mine among them, that you may tell your children and your grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians and how to perform my signs among them, and that you may know that I am the Lord. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail, including every tree that is growing in your fields. They will fill your houses and those of all your officials and all the Egyptians. Something neither your parents nor your ancestors have ever seen from the day they settled in this land till now. Then Moses turned and left Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's officials said to him, how long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined? Now, I don't know how many of you enjoy all these grasshoppers that are out there today. How many of you have grasshopper problems right now? And I know, I've been busy working in the house, so I haven't been able to take care of my yard as much. People ask me, what can I do for grasshoppers? And I just tell them, get some dish soap and put it in a spray bottle and spray your plants. I have the remedy. I know what can stop these grasshoppers, but I don't take the time to do it. But they say that when you put a dish soap or a Basic H or LC, whatever, into a little bottle and spray on the leaves, and it actually paralyzes the insides of the insect and it dies. But I'm thinking about all these grasshoppers, and even the Butch Meininger, who has an iris garden over in Mitchell, said that it was so bad last year that the grasshoppers were actually eating the bark off the trees. But I think what he experienced and what we experienced with our grasshoppers had no comparison to what the land of Egypt experienced when the locusts devoured the land. If you can imagine so many grasshoppers that you couldn't even see the ground. And you know, so many times God does things in an extraordinary measure so that He can wake us up. But we are stubborn. We harden our hearts. We complain. We make excuses. What will it take for us to stay on the right path, to keep from turning our backs against God? Why is it that there has to be something terrible happen in our lives before we turn back and say, God, we need you? Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. Go worship the Lord your God, he said. But tell me, who will be going? Moses answered, we will go with our young and our old, our sons and daughters, and our flocks and our herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord. And Pharaoh said, the Lord be with you. If I let you go along with the women and children, clearly you're bent on evil. Now here's a person that is evil calling them evil. No, I have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that is what you have been asking for. And Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. Now, you know, you can clearly see that Pharaoh doesn't want to lose the people that are their slaves. So he wants to kind of hold some of the family back so they're guaranteed to come back to Egypt. He's afraid that he will lose those people. And then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over Egypt, so all the locusts that swarmed over the land and devoured everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail. So Moses stretched out his staff over Egypt, and the Lord made an east wind blow across the land all that day and all that night by morning, and the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all of Egypt and settled down in every area of the country in great numbers. Never before had there been such a great plague of locusts, nor will there ever be again. So, when you see those grasshoppers, it's not going to be as bad as you think, or as bad as it could be. They covered all the ground until it was blind. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields and the fruit on the trees. Nothing green remained on the trees or plant in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, I have sinned against the Lord, your God, and sinned against you. Now forgive my sin once more, and pray to the Lord your God to take this deadly plague away from you. Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord. And the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught the locusts and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in the land. Wouldn't it be nice if there's no grasshoppers in our fields? But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt. Darkness that can be felt. I don't know how dark is darkness that you can feel the darkness, but I remember one time when I went to the wind caves up in the Black Hills, and they take you down this elevator into this dark cave, and no light, and it's a weird feeling because you can't even see your hand when you put it in front of you. I think that's what he means by darkness, that is so dark that you can just feel the darkness. You know, I think about, in the comparison about God is light. And you know, in heaven, there's not going to be any need for the sun or the moon or the stars, because God is the light. He's the source of the light. And in heaven, because God is present and there is no darkness, wow, that means we don't even have to sleep. There's not going to be any tiredness there. So when the people of Egypt had experienced this thing of darkness, I cannot imagine what that must have been for 3 days not to see this. Now, I know some of you have lived, anybody lived in Alaska before? Where there's times when there's either all day with light or all day with no light at all. I can't imagine that. I wouldn't want to live in a place that was dark for 3 days. I think that's why they allowed the immersion for there. No one could see anyone else or move for about 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the place where they lived. And then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go worship the Lord. Even your women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and your herds behind." But Moses said, "You must allow us to have sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock must go too with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshiping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see me, my face, you will die." "Just as you say," Moses replied, "I will never appear before you again." So here we have the plagues: water to the blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock, boils, hail, locusts, darkness. What will it take for him to wake up? Well, if you don't know the story, you would have to wait till I get back. Or you can read ahead, of course. And what will it take for Pharaoh to soften his heart enough to let him go? Well, I'll give you a little hint. What happens is, he does eventually let the people go. But he didn't change his heart. You remember the story? He goes and changes it after them. And pretty soon, what happened when they changed after? Well, if you don't know, either read or wait till I get back. In Psalm 81, it says, "For the directive means according to Gibeah of Asher. Sing for joy to God our strength. Sing aloud to the God of Jacob. Begin the music, strike the timbrel, play the melodious harp and lyre. Sound the ram's horn at the new moon, and when the moon is full on the day of our festival. This is a decree for Israel, an ordinance of the God of Jacob. When God went out against Egypt, he established it as a statute for Joseph. I heard an unknown voice say, I removed the burden from their shoulders. Their hands were set free from the basket. In your distress I called and rescued you. I answered you out of the thundercloud. I tested you at the waters of Meribah. Hear me, O my people, and I will warn you. If you would only listen to me, Israel, you shall have no foreign gods among you. You shall not worship any god other than me. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. Open wide your mouth, and it will fill it, and I will fill it. But my people would not listen to me. Israel will not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. And if my people would only listen to me, if Israel would only follow my ways, how quickly I would subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord will cringe before him, and their punishment will last forever, but you would be fed with the finest of wheat, with honey from the rock. I would satisfy. Why is it that there is so many promises from the Lord our God that he says, if you do this, then you'll get this, but if you do this, then you're going to get what you deserve? Aren't we stubborn? Just like the Egyptians. What is it going to take for each and every one of us to give up the sin that so entangles us? Let's fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter. Wow. Jesus went to the cross because he loved us so much. And no matter how many times we keep on making excuses, how many times we complain, and how many times we even blame God for the hardship that we face when it's our own sin that gets us in the situation and the hardship that we go through. Maybe we need to wake up. maybe 2 days of time, then you can say in your heart that I want to make a difference, and I don't want to be like Pharaoh. I want to do what is right. I'm going to stop making excuses. I'm going to stop complaining. I'm going to live my life so that God will be pleased with me, and so that the community, my friends, my neighbors, will see my good works and glorify the Father who is in heaven. Sing. Stand and sing the hymn of invitation, faith is the victory. Maybe you haven't made a commitment to the Lord yet. Maybe you've come to church, feel that it's good enough. No, and not until you face the thing that is holding you back, the thing that is hard in your heart, to fully give your life and your control of yourself over to the control of God, so that He can change your life and make Him into the person He desires you to be. Let's sing as we sing. Let's sing Faith is the Victory. God bless all of you. And I hope you take the message and apply it to your lives. And then share it with others. Let's sing our closing song, Awesome God.